Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Heroes of the Storm. Now on this one we're going to be going over the character E.T.C, which is right here, and I'll be showing you what you can do with him. I played him while they had the free weekend. I just forgot to make the tutorial, which is why you can see he's not unlocked. But you can see he is level 4, so I do know a little bit about him. And they went ahead and added a few new skins for this character. This one right here. They didn't used to have. This one's pretty cool looking. And this one's they've had for a while. So, we'll go into the mounts. And you can see that he has pretty much the regular mounts that you normally have. Some characters cannot have mounts. They either fly around with wings on, or they shapeshift into something else like a wolf. This one happens to have all the mounts that you're able to use. It also has the holiday mounts for Christmas that they have going on right now. So depending on what time of the year you play, you may not see this one, or it may be here, depending. So let's go into his abilities. Every class has 4 abilities to start with, and he's no different. He's a melee warrior. Difficulty is around medium, it says. I found he was pretty much an easy class to play for me, but then again, I kind of go towards more warriors or healers, so it wasn't a big transition for me. Power slide, dash to an area, stunning and damaging enemies hit. Didn't use this one too terribly much in the gameplay. I did occasionally to get into combat or out of combat, but it's not a very large power slide. It doesn't push you that far forward or out of combat, so not really a great thing to use, especially when you're fighting an enemy and you try using this. You end up using or sliding behind him, and usually into more trouble. You get hit by towers or something like that, so something I usually didn't use very often. Face melt. Knockback, stun, and damage nearby enemies. This is always useful, the stun effect, the knockback effect. If you fight, Sergeant Hammer, he can plant his tank down and do a artillery barrage that's really, really strong. If you have something that can knock him back, it will knock him off of his stance, and his spell is basically worthless. He has to wait all the way until he can reuse it again. So something like this can be very useful against certain enemies that you know their weaknesses, especially the stun effect, trying to either get away from enemies or keeping them where they are so that you can finish them off. Really helps out. Guitar solo comes back really quickly, and it regenerates health, so it's a very cool little thing to have, but it only regenerates health for you. Rockstar. After using an ability, E.T.C and nearby allies temporarily gain attack speed. You won't actually notice this. This is just something that's a talent. It's a trait that's just there, but it does seem to help out. You know, when you're really watching, you notice that your team is doing a little bit better than they probably should, simply because you're nearby. So that's kind of a nice little buff to have. When you're level 10, you'll get the chance to have your heroic abilities, where you can only pick 1 or the 2 out of it. And when you first start this character off, you only have access to the very top one, like with any other class. So you have Mosh Pit. It stuns nearby enemies, forcing them to dance. It's okay. It's not really the greatest spell in the world. And then you got Stage Dive, Global Leap that slows and damages enemies. This one's very cool. I like this just because it lets you get around a lot quicker. Now, remember, there is a cap on how far you can jump on the map, and wherever you're targeting has to be lit up, so it can't be fogged over, and you can't really see what's there. And I'm not talking about the black cloud where you literally cannot see anything there at all. I'm talking about just the hazy blackness, like the fog of war, that you can't see where if an enemy's running by or not, but you can see if there's a tree or something like that there. You still can't use this. And it does a tremendous amount of damage too, so it's a very nice spell. I like it, and he uses it very quickly, so it's not one of those that you cast and you have to wait 1 or 2 or even 3 seconds before he makes the leap. As soon as you use it, he's already making that leap, so you don't have to worry about the enemy running out of range of wherever you were trying to get. So let's go over the talents you have. Again, you get them at level 1, 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, and 20. So let's see. Block periodically reduces the damage received from hero basic attacks by 50%. Stores up to 2 charges. It's okay. It's nothing great. I wouldn't actually put a point into this, but you know, you could if you're worried about it. Damage slide. Increase damage of power slide by 30%. Well, considering I don't really use that spell that often, Not really something I would put into a point into, but if you like that spell, definitely worth putting some increased damage into it. Dance your pants off. Enemy minions hit by face melt also dance for 5 seconds. This is the one I like. I use this a lot because you run into all these little minions and you'll use your little area effect, and you'll do a little bit more damage, and they're dancing, which means they're not hitting you or the people around you. It doesn't sound like a big thing, but in the beginning of the game, when really all you're doing is fighting minions with the occasional heroic coming up there and you're basically back and forth, not really killing anything, this can make a difference. Let's see, superiority. Reduces damage taken from non-heroic enemies by 50%. Not really a big deal to me, but if you happen to be going the way of wanting to attack more mercenaries or more minions without getting into the fight of heroics, then this might be a way for you to go. Pawn Shop Guitar. Guitar solo's mana's cost is reduced by 50%. I like this one, but this character doesn't really have to worry about power too often, as long as you're kind of careful. So you may not need this, if you find that you're not using your power as much as somebody else might be. I like this one. Groupies. Guitar solo also heals nearby allies for 12 health every second for its duration. Now that may not sound like a lot, 12 health for every second, but you can increase its duration, and every little bit helps. I mean, if you're just being there and you're already increasing their attack speed, and now you can increase their health, so much the better. So I like this one quite a bit. Echo Pedal. After using a basic or heroic ability, pulse twice for 10 damage to nearby enemies. Basically, you're going to have a damage shield that you're going to pulse twice and hit enemies, so a total of 20 damage. Again, not the greatest, but sorry, before minions, it wouldn't be that bad. But again, with the other two that you can pick here, the Groupies and the Pawn Shop Guitar, I really wouldn't even go with that one down here, the Battle Momentum. Now, a lot of classes have this, and I never really use it. Basic attacks reduce ability cooldown by 0.5 seconds. Now, the reason I don't usually use this is because you're going to be using your basic attack a lot, and if you reduce your cooldowns, you're going to be using your abilities quite a lot more, which means you're going to run out of power, and most classes have a hard enough time keeping the power the way it is without having this. Now, you can always use this and have maybe that one ability that you want to use more often, whether it's a heal spell or just a really, really good attack spell, come back a little bit faster. But overall, this is not going to make you like an uber character because you can get your abilities back faster. Your mana is going to be, or your power is going to be the thing that slows you down. So keep that in mind when picking. Monster Slide. Increase width of Power Slide by 50%. That's kind of cool that you can hit more people with it, so it's definitely something to keep in mind if you want to go that route. Loudspeakers. Increase the range and knockback of Face Melt by 50%. Now this is a cool thing. I use Face Melt quite a bit. So to increase the range, which means you can hit more people with it, is definitely a cool thing to have. I would actually go with this more often. But I kind of like the Guitar Hero. After using Guitar Solo, your next basic attack strikes immediately, dealing double damage, and heals you for 50% of the damage dealt. Again, depending on how you're playing your character and the enemy team you're going against, if you find that you need more health than attack, then this is something you can do. But if you find that you're doing okay on your health and it's not really a big issue, then go towards more of your attack and either increase your width or the range and knockback of your face melt. Now, we already went over heroic abilities, but I'll show them to you anyways. A mosh pit. Always make sure you look down. Sorry, hold on a second, guys. I apologize for that, a little cold that I have. Always make sure you look at your cooldown, 120 seconds. This will make a huge difference sometimes on which one you pick. Some of them have them as low as like 40 or 50 seconds. So if you can cast it 3 times in the amount of time it takes you to cast one, you may decide that it's actually worth it to have that ability rather than the other one that does more damage. So after a short delay, channel to stun nearby enemies for 4 seconds. 4 seconds is not a lot of time, and it doesn't really do any damage. It's just stunning the people near you. You're just going to make them dance. Stage Dive, 100 seconds is cooldown. So you can see already you'll be able to cast this one more often than the other one. Leap to any location, deal 100 damage, slows for 3 seconds. So that's very cool. You can leap into a fight, leap out of a fight, and wherever you land, you'll do 100 damage. Now, I usually end up using this when the enemy is running away from me. This character is not usually the fastest, so if they get a head start, I usually can't catch up with them. Plus, you don't have that many ranged attacks other than your power slide, so something like this can finish an enemy off that is close to being dead. Uber Rockstar, it's a trait. The Rockstar aura also adds 20% movement speed. So right, I guess. Rock out. It's another trait. Increase the duration of Rockstar by 2 seconds, and minions get the full bonus. That's kind of cool. I mean, that you're affecting your minions now, so they're getting the bonus along with it. Relentless. Reduce the duration of silence, stuns, slows, roots, and polymorphs against your hero by 50%. Now, I used to say that this right here would not make that big of a difference at this time because nobody's playing those exotic characters that can actually stun, root, and polymorph. But now there are. Now that we're getting into some of the more complicated classes that they're giving us access to right now, people are getting stunned and slowed all the time. So this might actually come in handy if you're fighting an enemy or a group of enemies who are using that to a great extent. You may want to consider doing this because not very many classes have the ability to reduce that stuff or cancel it out altogether. So if you happen to be one of those classes, you may consider that later on in the game. For now, I usually go with this one. It's Face Melt. Enemies hit by Face Melt are also slowed by 80%, which fades out over 2 seconds. Now you can see, like I said before, now you're starting to slow enemies, you're doing more things to them. This one's very cool, especially if you know they're about to run away. 2 seconds can be just enough time for you to do that last couple hits to finish them off. Head Crack. Increase stun duration of Power Slide by 50%. I don't really use Power Slide, so I didn't really like this one. But again, if you're one of those people who do like that spell, or is partial to it, this may be an option for you. Guitar Instrumental. Guitar solo's duration is increased by 100%. Now, I told you before, if you went and got the talent that would allow people nearby you to heal themselves when you used it, now you can increase the duration to 100%, so everybody around you is going to get healed for longer. Very cool thing to have, especially in a big fight. Imposing Presence. Enemies that attack you have their attack speed slowed by 50%. That's kind of cool. The fact that anybody attacks you gets slowed automatically. That means that they're trying to run away after they hit you, or if it's a drive-by, they just hit you, and then you need to run away. You can actually get out of that easier because they can't run as fast anymore. Stone Skin. This is a cool thing to have on certain classes. This guy has quite a few things other than this to pick from, so I wouldn't really grab it, but activate to gain 30% of your max health as shields for 5 seconds. Now, they recently fixed this. It used to be if you used your shield and you were full life, you would lose 30% of your life, and that life wouldn't come back. Now, as the shield is being drained down, your life is automatically being refilled back up to what it should have been because you were full life anyway. So, very nice little thing to have, especially now that they fixed it. Resurgence of the Storm. Upon dying, revive back at your altar after 5 seconds. This can occur once every 180 seconds. This is kind of a cool thing to get. If any of you guys have died really late into the game, usually if I die at all, it's going to be at the last like 5, 8, 9 minutes of the game, and sometimes it will take you like a whole minute or a minute and a half, it's like 90 seconds for you to come back. It's a long time to be sitting there and waiting, watching your team just fight by themselves. So when you first get here, you're only going to have these 2 basic spells to pick from. So I kind of like the Resurgence of the Storm because this basic attack chains to enemies, which is Fury of the Storm, and it tells you basic attacks bounce twice to nearby enemies for 50% damage. Is nice, but it doesn't really do all that much. It's extra damage, which is always a nice thing, but if you take into account how much damage you can do in 90 seconds or a minute and a half of game, it's going to outweigh this every single time. So if you never die, then I would go with Fury, but if you do die, on occasion, Resurgence might be the way to go, because by the time you get this, it's going to be pretty late into the game anyways, so you're not going to do a lot of damage because you really don't have that much game time left, but you are going to be making giant pushes towards the enemy's base, and chances are you're going to be dying. So you got Death Metal. Makes dancing enemies vulnerable, increasing damage taken by 25%. This is kind of nice, but I don't really like this one for a lot of reasons. One major one is, unless you put the talent points into the right things, your enemies aren't going to be dancing anyways. And if they do dance, they're not going to be dancing for very long. And so the chance that you can take full advantage of this by 25%, again, is not a lot of damage. And the short window in which you can do something with this is so small that it really is minute. I wouldn't waste a point into it. You got Rock God. Reduce the cast and airtime of Stage Dive by 50% and increases the damage dealt by 50%. So if you remember that one from level 10, you have Stage Dive. And so now you'll be able to cast it every 50 seconds rather than 100 seconds. And it will do 150 damage rather than 100. And then you have Bolt of Storm. Activate to teleport to a nearby location. Don't really like those. So again, guys, if you like these episodes, please hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment below, or as always, hit me up in game. Thanks again for watching.